Good morning. It's an honor for my wife and I to be here with you guys this morning. And I know what you're thinking right now is like, yeah, there's another preacher with an accent. Can he invite somebody who does? I want you to know a couple of things about me before so we can get acquainted. My wife is here right now. Pastors' spouses love it when we put them on the spot. So my wife is right here in the front. Kathy, would you stand up for a moment and just do the pastor's wife greeting? I want you to know a couple of things about me. I love Jesus, number one. I love Dallas Cowboys, number two. And I would love to have grandkids. I have three children. I have four kids. Three of them are married. Only one has kids of their own. And I'm praying. So if anybody is a grandparent and can help me in this endeavor, they don't have any desire to have kids. I'm trying. They're not even like trying. It's like, Dad, we're trying. No, it's like we're just chilling. Life is great. So I want to talk today to you about one of my favorite Bible characters. His name is Peter. Most people are born with a filter between their brain and their mouth. Peter did not have that filter. Peter just spoke whatever was on his mind. And there were three changes that he experienced in his life. I don't know about you, but most people don't deal well with change. How are you? How do you deal with change? I'm a pastor's kid, so I've moved 30 times in my life. I don't like moving. But I just moved into a house, and I'm talking to my wife about moving again. But it's just love-hate thing with moving that I have. So some people don't have issues with change. Most of us do. I remember when I got married, I had certain expectations. Behind every problem that you have in a relationship, there is an unmet expectation. I expected to eat rice and beans every meal. Because when we were dating, every time she cooked for me, she cooked rice and beans. And then we got married. And I came home on a weekday, and there was food in my table that I'd never eaten before. It was spaghetti with salad, and she said it's gonna be Italian night at the Hernandez. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, you can eat whatever you want, honey, but I would like some rice and beans, because when I was growing up, we ate rice and beans every meal. Okay, I'm a Cuban by birth. We ate rice and beans in the morning, rice and beans for lunch, rice and beans at the evening. If we woke up at 3 in the morning, you know what we ate? No, we didn't eat nothing at 3 in the morning. We went back to bed. What is wrong with people in Oklahoma? Mercy. Just go back to bed, drink some water, go to the bathroom, go back to bed. And she came with this spaghetti, and I was like, I would like some rice and beans because my mom, and then my wife put her hand on her hip. Like nothing good happens when with this pose right here. She says, I am not, some of you have said that or heard that. I'm not your mom. So you have two choices, Roger. You can eat what I cook for you with love, or you can cook your own rice and beans. And I said, listen, hold up. Because, I had to assert my authority. I'm the man of the house. I wanted to make sure she understood who was in charge. So I ate my spaghetti because I don't know how to cook. It was hard for me. It was hard for me. Change of a diet is hard. Change in religion organizations is even harder. It's easier to add a fourth person to the Trinity than it is to change a carpet in a church. Pastoring, by the way, we celebrate your pastors today. We want to celebrate all the pastors that are here, right? Let's give them a hand. Let's give them a hand. It's a hard job. It's one of the only jobs that everybody is an expert at what you do. Like, I don't go to your job and tell you how to run numbers, Joe. But it's a really difficult job. And if God is going to bring revival, change is part of the equation. So God operated in the life of Peter and changed him in three ways. We're going to look at those this morning. Number one, Peter experienced, let me see, I have my slides. Oh, there. Peter experienced a change of strategy. The passage for this morning is found in Luke chapter 5. You can turn there in your phones, or you can read it. I'm going to have it in the screen as well. Luke chapter 5 is an interesting story because it's a story that combines occupation and purpose. It combines what Peter used to do, what he's going to do. They've been fishing all night, and Jesus asked for his boat to preach from. And then tells them to go back and fish on the deeper end of the lake. The first thing he does, the first thing Jesus does to Peter is that he has a change of strategy. Notice, and when I was preparing this message, there was something in me, because I could have preached any kind of any message of the different ones that I have, but there's something in my soul that was stirred up. I don't know who this is for this morning, but when I get there, at the end, when you elbow bump me, you can tell me, yeah, that was for me. I don't know who this is for, but I just felt it deep in my spirit. Maybe it was just for me. This change of strategy. Chapter 5, verse 4 says, Jesus has finished speaking. He told Simon, row the boat out into the deep water and let your nets down to catch some fish. Change of strategy. It is distressing to me as a pastor for 30 years to see the lack of imagination. In church, we usually operate based on memory and not imagination. We think that nostalgia is a church growth strategy. We celebrate what has been done. But God is doing a new thing. Can I hear an amen? It's fine. You can say amen through your mask. God is doing a new thing. And we resist God's move because it's unfamiliar to us. We resist God's move because we're not used to it. We resist God's move because we don't like it. It's not based, God's operating vision is not based on your preferences. I have to ask myself, every single week about my church, I have to ask myself about my life. What am I doing and how is it going? If it's not going good, it would be madness to continue to do the same thing. We just want to do the same thing. We want to do the same. How about this year? Well, the same thing. But that didn't work last year. Doesn't matter. Let's try it again. How about this year? No, let's try it again. 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 It's never worked. Let's try it again. One of the greatest enemies of future success in your life is past success. Because when you've done something and it worked, you think, well, I'm going to ride this pony, but the pony's been dead for a while. I wrote a couple of things down. Number one, this was an uncomfortable request with the potential for ridicule. What Jesus is asking of Peter has the potential for ridicule. Number one, Peter thinks he knows what's best because he's a fisherman. Jesus is just a preacher. And the Bible says that there's a whole lot of people around there listening to Jesus. So there's a crowd gathered. I don't know how about you, but I'm a little self-conscious sometimes, right? I'm a little self-conscious. And when I'm eating, I don't like people looking at me. I don't like people staring. This is risk, but God honoring risk, right? He said, I want you to throw the nets in the deep end. Here's another thing that I wrote. The quickest way to mediocrity is a ridicule-proof faith. I just want to play it safe. I don't want to take any risks. We've never seen it. Last words of any organization, we've never done it that way before. We don't have the resources. I'll tell you, I've been a pastor for 30 years. I have never had the resources for God's vision. I've had the resources to fulfill mine, but not his. But when God gives you a vision, he'll give you the resources for it. I don't want to take any risk. No, if we do this, and how is God going to look if we do this and we fail? God is big enough to take care of his own reputation. It's not your job to protect his reputation. It's your job to follow instructions. It's your job to be obedient to his call. So here's the part that will stir something in my soul, and it's this. Jesus is telling Peter, go on the deep end and fish there. And I don't know who I'm talking to this morning, but there are some of you who've been fishing in the shallow end because it's safer there. You can see the fish there. You can, if you fall off the boat, you're not going to drown. Like, you can control the environment. You can control the situation. I just felt that deep in my soul. And Jesus is telling, hey, do something in the deep end where you can control other circumstances, where you're going to have to rely on prayer and on my favor for you to get ahead. Some of you have been, God has been stirring in your soul some things for a while, and you have been resisting. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to, because I've never done it, and you've been fighting. Have you ever had a fight with God where you are fighting with God, but at the end, God always wins? It's been a change of strategy. It's interesting that they did the same thing, but in a different place. Sometimes all it needs, you don't have to scrap the whole plan. Sometimes all it needs is a small adjustment. There's a change in strategy. If one thing that this pandemic has shown the church is the idealization of buildings over mission. When are we going to get to worship? Well, what do you mean? So the building is the only place you can worship in? The first church didn't start off in buildings, it started with people. It's a movement. That's why it's called a movement. I love meeting together for church, but whether I'm here or I'm in the streets, the gospel will be preached to all the world, and then Jesus will come. I don't idolize methods. You have to fall in love with your mission and develop that as God will. It's interesting. It's funny to me. It's not funny, but it's funny to me. It's funny to me how the same pastors and church leaders who were demonizing social media then were preaching on it. That you can't, in order to read a Bible, you have to have the pages. You can't look it on your phone. It's the same word. I have to find out, okay, what is working in Tulsa? Not what's working somewhere else, what the other church is doing, what that other congregation is doing, what the mega church is doing, what this pastor is doing. I want to know what the specific mission that God has given me to fulfill in this community. Wherever it is that I'm planted, I'm going to bloom, because if God raises me up, he's going to sustain me. If it's God's plan, then it's God's will. Number one, a change of strategy. I'm going to put some words on the screen, and I want you to say it as loud as you can, all right? Okay, ready? This is a message for the person sitting next to you, because you already believe it, but the person next to you needs to hear it, all right? Go ahead. Loud, loud. Go up the deep end. Go up the deep. Just that is just certifiable. You're crazy. You're crazy. What's the last time that you attempted something for God that it was so crazy that if you failed, you were going to look like an absolute fool? Number one, a change of strategy. Number two, change of leadership. Change of leadership. Simon Peter thought he was in charge. But notice that just one word changes the whole dynamic, the whole power dynamics. Because he was in charge of his crew. Because when Jesus addresses all the fishermen, he addresses Simon Peter. So he was in charge. He's a leader. He's a natural born leader. He can't, he sometimes speaks out of turn, sometimes sticks his foot in his mouth. But sometimes leaders make mistakes. But there's just one word that changes the power dynamic in this situation. This is from a person he's just met, who's asked for his boat. He says to him, Master. So he's recognizing there is a bigger leader than him. Master, Simon answered, we have worked hard all night long and have not caught a thing. But if you tell me to, I will let the nets down. I want to introduce you to a phrase that is necessary for your spiritual growth. Okay, here's the phrase. I'm going to check. It's not that one. Here's the phrase. The phrase is reluctant obedience. This is when God is calling you to do something and you don't want to, but you do it anyway. Some people think that the life of a Christian is you always happy about everything that God has to say. You know what the hardest thing to do is? It's about a foot. One of the hardest things for married couples is about a foot in distance. When you're mad at each other, but you're about to go to bed, and you want to hold her hand, and God is saying, hey, make up. Hey, forgive that person. Hey, give. Hey, volunteer. Hey, say yes to the call. And you're like, I don't. We experienced this in our home when we lived in Oregon. My kids were young. It was first grade, second grade, first grade, kindergarten. Young kids. When you have young kids, it's fantastic. They love you. They hug you. They're not ashamed of you. You kiss them in public and it's fine. And then they become teenagers, right? But I had young kids. I'm like, it's going to be a while until I have teenagers. And then all of a sudden, my wife came home one day and said, there is a young lady in the church. She's 14. She's a foster kid. And the family she's living with can't have her anymore. And I've been praying, and I think God is telling us to bring her into our home. So I immediately had two problems. Number one, why didn't God talk to me first? I'm like, why is this happening right now? So, number two, my house was my castle. Like I had young kids, I had a large congregation. People say, man, you have a large church. Man, you would be so blessed. More people, more problems. So I came home to peace and prosperity. And now I'm going to bring in somebody that is 14 years old, like right in the cusp of being a teenager. No. I need to hear from God myself. So we went into a season of fasting and praying. And we went into a season of fasting and praying, and God said, yes. Who said that I had to talk to you first? I can talk to whoever I am. I'm God, dummy. And we were convinced that this is a choice that we needed to make. And we brought Daisy into our home, and she became the greatest blessing. Reluctant obedience. I was not convinced. I didn't, even after God said this is something that you should do, I was not convinced that I did not want to do this. But I, just like Peter, I said, listen, Jesus, we've been fishing here all night. Like, we're experts, bro. But if you say so, I don't know what kind of attitude Peter said that, probably with an attitude. But if you say so, we're just going to do this over here. I don't think it's going to work, but we're going to do it anyway. I'm going to have reluctant obedience. Greatest thing that ever happened to us. About 6 months after Daisy came to live with us, my wife said, hey, Roger, I have to talk to you again about something. And it's like, we sat down and said, Daisy's sister, who's a year older, also is living somewhere, and it's not the greatest arrangements. And I've been praying. I think God is wanting us to bring her here. I'm like, why does this keep happening? So we went and prayed again, and we fasted again, and God said, yep, and Yesenia came to live with us. And now Yesenia and Daisy and my son and my daughter, and now it's a family of 4, now it's a family of 6, and it changes all the dynamics, and it changed our lives for the better. It's the greatest thing that ever happened to us. Don't resist reluctant obedience. When God tells you, see, there's a change in dynamics. Some of you are really fighting God right now. Like this, you came out of this season understanding that you must be doing something different. You must, there's a shift that is happening, and you are resisting it with all your might. But I'm not comfortable, God. I don't know it, God. I'm too old, God. Not at this stage, God. Not right now. I have young kids, God. I have older kids now. I have teenagers, God. Why do you want me to do this? Why do you want me to move here? And you're fighting and you're fighting and you're fighting. And this is the day you stop fighting and say, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but whatever God calls, God blesses. Whatever God lifts, He prospers. Whatever He orders, He sustains. So I have to trust in His guidance and not mine. There's a change of strategy. Number 2, it's a change of leadership. It must make God laugh when you tell Him your definite plans. You say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and then I'm that, and then this is 20. Yeah, sure. And heaven is like, it's a stand-up special right there. Nick, when you were growing up, how many times did you think, yeah, I'll be working in Oklahoma? That's where I'm going to be at. Reluctant obedience. My daughter moved from one part of the country to another with us. She was crying because she had just gotten her first boyfriend. She was 16. I said, if you wait till 16, I'm going to give you a car. And she said, okay. So at 16, she turned 16, and the next day she had a car and a boyfriend. Don't do that. It's a bad strategy. And we moved across the country. She broke up. Well, he broke up with her. I was happy about it because I didn't like the guy. But she went to school, and in school, met her now husband. Reluctant obedience. I've seen it over and over and over and over. You don't have to understand it to be able to obey it. The last one, number 3, is a change of strategy, a change of leadership. And number 3, a change of attitude. This is an odd response from Peter. An odd response. Chapter 5, verse 8. When Simon Peter saw this happen, he knelt down in front of Jesus. That's a good response. That's a good response, right? You see that God has performed a miracle, and you kneel in front of Jesus. It's a natural response. The next part is the one that troubles me. It says, Lord, don't come near me, for I am a sinner. I talk to people all the time. My job is being ministerial director and evangelist, so I talk to people who are far from God all the time. You'd be amazed at the messed up visions that people have of who God is. A God who burns people forever in hell. Like that God sounds a lot like the devil. So we have a message for the world. This concept of God, steps to Christ, Ellen White says, one of the things that Jesus came to do is to help people do away with the myths. There's a direct correlation between what you think, who you think God is, to the way you behave, and the way you treat other people, and the way you treat your spouse, and the way you treat your kids, and the way you rate your kids, and the way you spend your money. That your gospel understanding it's not just some theological stuff. Your gospel understanding addresses and impacts the way you operate in life. I've seen it over and over. You know why? Because I was born into a pastoral family, and I never met Jesus until I was 24. How does that happen? How you grow up in church and never meet Jesus? How you grow up in church and never meet Christ? How you grow up in church and know all the stories, but don't know the author of the stories? How do you know stuff about the Bible, but don't know the author of the Bible? How does that happen? This concept of who God is. See, the devil wants to believe lies, and I see it on social media. People saying, I like Jesus, but I don't like church. I'm not down with church. I'm not no, because it's oppressive, and at some point we have to ask ourselves, what kind of Jesus have we been presenting? What kind of Jesus have we been showing people? It's not just about what you put in your social media feed. Some of the meanest comments I've received on social media are from people who have Jesus in their bio. See, I read something this week, and it just wrecked me. This quote just wrecked me. It says, the reason why in the Bible it's a story of Judas kissing Jesus publicly is to show us that a public declaration of love for Jesus does not really represent the fact that you really connected to him. How can you say you love Jesus in your bio and hate people of color and be silent with oppression? How can you say you love Jesus and look at the poor and say, well, they're not working hard enough? Can you say you love Jesus and put political party over the God that you serve? See, we're not donkeys or elephants. We follow lambs. I'm politically agnostic. I understand either Trump or Biden are going to save this country. God has never called us to save countries. God's called us to save people. And the only solution for people is Jesus. So my loyalty is with the bloodstained banner. This concept of God that has been shown, especially in this country, that they associate us with everything that is negative, with a religion of no. You like it? No. No. Because we show outrage about interesting things. There's a rapper a couple of weeks ago came out with this, it's called Satan shoes. So people are outraged about the Satan shoes. We're silent about the fact that there's people in your community are growing up without dads. People in your community have been discriminated. It's interesting to me what we choose to be silent about. We're outraged about Satan's shoes, but silent about the things that matter. And it's our job as a church to help people understand this glorious image of a Jesus that is full of hope. I mean, with that change in my life, it went 18 inches from my head to my heart. It just changed the way I operated. It changed the way I treated women. It changed the way I treated other people. It changed my behavior. It changed my thought process. It changed my passions in life. It changed everything. I grew up knowing about religion, but never having a relationship. And when I was 23, I was in a class, and I saw the passage from the book of Romans. It says that when you work, you work. But salvation is not something you work for. It's a gift. Universal symbol, listen to me, the universal symbol of Christianity is not a ladder, it's a cross. We don't work ourselves up to God. We don't have to prove to him that we're safe enough to save. We don't have to show him. We don't have to promise him stuff. The key to spiritual growth is for you to understand the right character of God. I knew Jesus loved me. I knew it. I just thought he was very disappointed in me. I just imagined a God that was hands crossed in heaven saying, man, you messed up again, Roger. What in the world is wrong with you? And when that shifted and when that changed in my mind and in my life, it just changed everything. In the mind of Peter, the first impulse was like, stay away from me. Stay away from me. I don't want anything to do with you. Celebrating Easter. It's a great opportunity for you to get with acquainted or reacquainted with the real Jesus. A Jesus that explains to us that we're not saved by imitation, we're saved by substitution. That you are right now as much saved as you're going to ever be if you accept Jesus into your heart. That there's no, you're not working towards victory. You're working from victory. And the gospel is glorious.